Welcome to a board game review from theplayersaid.com. I'm Grant. Today, actually this last weekend, I played a couple of games of a new game that came to me from Tiny Battle Publishing called, get ready for it, Attack of the 50-Foot Colossi. So, kind of cool. It's a sci-fi based hex encounter war game designed by Herman Luttman. I've really started to enjoy Herman Luttman designs more over the past year or so. Played several of his games. I have a couple from Flying Pig Games. He also has designed a lot that we haven't played. But this is one that I've really enjoyed recently. Once again, this is from Tiny Battle Publishing. And it is actually the game number 3 in the Invaders from Dimension X series. It says Galactic Marines battle humongous rock aliens. So this game kind of is a 1950 B-movie sci-fi serial type theme. Really cool. I think it's well done. I think it's well integrated into the gameplay. And frankly, this game is a lot of fun. I think that's most important. When I'm looking at solitaire games, and this is a solitaire-only game, I think there are special 2-player rule options, but I have not delved into those yet. But when I play solitaire games, I don't want to pull my fingernails out for 3 hours, not enjoy it, and have to slog through rule after rule and variants from those rules and exceptions. I want to play a game that's quick, playable, most importantly fun, and that tries to create a narrative through the use of its theme. This game does a great job of that. So the overall theme of this game is that you are the 124th Galactic Marine Battalion. You're on R&R. You're supposed to be on R&R. And you receive a distress signal from Graviton Prime, which is a planet that's known for mining activities. You receive this distress call from a group of miners that are being attacked by what are called Colossi, or Colossi, however you want to say it. They're basically large boulders that make up an alien organism that lives, and they're upset that the miners did some damage to their children, so they're going to take it out on the miners. So this game is, once again, a hex encounter game where you are playing the Marines fighting these stacks of boulder creatures. And it's really, once again, well done, well thought out. I think the rules are very clear, simple, yet they're fun and engaging. And I think that's something that, once again, I look for in solitaire games. So one of the things that I always look for in these solitaire games is the type of AI. How is the artificial intelligence or the system that you're working against, how is it designed, and is it designed well? What I would say for in this game, the AI are very simple. I think their actions are very simple. Their abilities are fairly simple and straightforward. But with that in mind, there's a lot of different variety. And I'll show you when we're going to do a little bit of a close-up view of the board here in a moment. But you'll notice that each of the different types of Colossi have different special abilities. They all kind of do the same thing. They're going to move 1 space per round unless there's a condition that allows them to move further. They're going to move 1 space towards the nearest enemy. They don't gauge threat. They don't gauge power or ability for damage of those enemies. It's simply the nearest enemy. And you're going to use tiebreakers to decide, based on which card you pull that drives their actions, you're going to use tiebreakers to decide which of those stacks you're going to go towards. So if there's 2 units that are exactly 6 spaces away from one of the monsters, they're going to choose whatever it says on the card. More often than not, it's the highest numbered hex or the lowest numbered hex. So the map is made up of hexes, and those hexes are numbered they're numbered 111 through 666. And we'll talk about that here in a moment, why that is. But they're going to move towards those higher or lower numbered hexes based on whatever those cards say. Then they're going to do what's called a rolling thunder attack, if and only if they're adjacent to a target. So sometimes you'll land 6, maybe 8 spaces away from these monsters, and over a period of 3 or 4 rounds, they're finally going to get in range of your Marines and be able to start damaging you, which gives you... Sorry, my clock is going off. I always try to time it so I miss that. But you're going to try to land such that you aren't right on top of these, because your Marines' weapons, have unlimited range, which is really kind of cool. They're limited only by line of sight and blocking terrain that are in the game. So once again, this AI system is very simple. I think it's simplified. I think that was the intention of the designer, Herman Luttman. Once again, so that it is playable and fun. So what you're going to do every round is you're going to follow the sequence of play, and we'll go through that when I do a little bit closer up of the map itself. But you've got a deck of Colossi order of action cards, and I believe there's 16 of these. And you're going to shuffle them up before each game, and when it comes their turn, which is near the end of the action phase, you're going to draw one of these cards, and I'll show you here when we get a little closer up. But these are the orders of action, and what they are going to do is list, in the order of activation, the different type of tribe for these Colossi. So in this one, you can see that it says Tombstones will act first, followed by Black Stones, White Stones, Gray Stones, and Brown Stones. The really cool thing about these cards, though, is when you pull them, they don't know which actual colored tribes you have on the board. Sometimes it is randomized. With the 2 scenarios, there is a specific setup, but there's always some opportunity for you to have destroyed or completely eliminated a stack, and therefore they may be on there, but they're not going to activate because they don't exist on the board itself anymore. You're also, if you look through this deck, you will see actually that the tribes aren't always listed on every card. There are 5 listed for activations, and there are 6 tribes, right? 7 tribes. So you can see that there's going to be 2 tribes more often than not that aren't going to be activated. And that's the way the AI is set up, such that you might get a break occasionally. You're not going to be able to look ahead and plan for that, but you will receive a break because maybe the yellow stones won't move, and therefore you can either kill them or get away from them so that they don't harm you in the future when they are activated. One other thing that I always look for in a good solitaire game is a well laid out sequence of play. One of the great things about this game is they have the entire sequence of play printed on the game board itself. This game board is double-sided, so there's an alpha side and a beta side. The alpha side you use on scenario 1, the beta on scenario 2, and then you can combine the 2 and make a campaign game where you play both back to back, keeping your losses and your other units that are eliminated don't come back in play, and you kind of continue playing. I've yet to play the campaign mode. I've only played the scenarios. But once again, the order, the sequence of play is written here on the board, and it's very easy to follow. And in fact, they give you a kind of a little chit that you're going to move down these steps so that you know where you are in that process. Very well done. You're always going to have at the beginning of the game, or at the beginning of a round, you're going to have a random event draw, and I have cups up there, but you're going to shuffle up these events. I believe there are, I want to say 14 different events. The scenario will tell you how many of those event chits to put in the cup. There's always one more than the rounds in the game. Each of these scenarios have 12 turns. The reason for that is one of them, the tectonic eruption chit, tells you to do something, and then it says immediately draw another chit. So that turn you're going to have to deal with 2 events. Some of the events are good. Some of them do things like allow you to flip over a reduced marine unit through a medical supply drop. Some of them do things, good things like acid rain, which are going to affect the defensive value number of the Colossi as you attack them for that round. That's a cool thing. Some are going to be bad, though. Sometimes you'll get a dust storm. You might also get chain lightning, which is a random event that actually can be good, but it also can be bad. You're going to roll and decide where that chain lightning affects, and it could be your guys, and it could attack all of them or several of them in order. So there are good and bad. There are some events that turn the Colossi kind of into a rage, and they attack and move and do different things. So it's really cool how that works. But that's how you're going to start each round. You're going to draw that event Chit, and then you're going to move on. Then you're going to do the Marine steps, which involve Marine recovery, scheduled reinforcements, which you're, per the scenario, going to have reinforcements ready to come in whenever it says they're going to come in. They'll give you a round that they're going to come in. Then you're going to do your actions. Actions are very simplified. The Marines can shoot. If they move, they can also move and shoot. I think it's called scoot and shoot. They can move up to half of their movement allowance, and then they get a -1 modifier when they shoot. So you can do that. Certain units like scouts can also do a recon. If they are successful, what they're going to do is be able to draw 2 event Chits during the next event Chit round, and they're going to look at those events, and they're going to decide which one they actually want to go off that round. So that can be very, very beneficial. You also can call in things like Orbital Strikes. If you have a healthy, non-stun, non-paralyzed headquarters unit or HQ unit, you can call in an Orbital Strike from your troop ship that's orbiting the planet. Those are my favorite attacks. Really some cool mechanics with those as well. I'll show you a little bit here in a second. But you're going to be able to do all those actions. Once again, range is unlimited. It's only bounded by line of sight. So if you run into a mountain or a hill or an impediment like these columns, you cannot shoot any further than that. And vice versa for the Colossi, if any of them have ranged attacks like boulder slings, which they do, or the Medusa Stare, which is the redstone special ability, can be very devastating. But then you're going to do all those actions, then you're going to move to a step called the Aura of Our Ancestors. This is a very interesting step because my first play, I don't think I had anything happen in this stage for 5 or 6 rounds. What it is intended to do, there are gravel counters, and I'll show you here when we get a little closer up. There are 8 of these gravel counters. What happens to gravel counters is if the Colossi, due to certain events, or if they run into and out of buildings or other obstacles, they will sometimes chip off something from their body and it will create a gravel pile. There's a procedure by which you roll some dice and you determine where that goes. And then during this Aura of Our Ancestors phase, those gravel piles can actually turn into units or resurrect a unit or repair a unit. They can also turn into what's called a bowling ball, where it's going to literally spin off in a certain direction, attacking units as it comes in line with them. Flintstones is one where that pile of gravel is going to destroy itself, kind of immolate itself, and stun and paralyze things around it. There are also events that are going to do nothing, like chalk. Those gravel counters will do nothing if that is pulled up. So that's what happens in that Aura of the Ancestors phase. There's also, you can move around the dust storm, which may have been conjured by an event, but those are the only 2 things that are going to happen in that phase of the game. Then you go to the Colossi action round, and that's where you're going to first draw a Colossi Order of Action card. You're going to follow it through and activate those different tribes that are on the board. They're always going to move 1 space unless an event allows them to move more spaces. Always towards the nearest enemy. It can be a civilian, like a miner. So once again, they don't judge whether they're a threat or not. They're simply going to move 1 space closer to those units. Then what they're going to do, if they're adjacent, they're going to do that Rolling Thunder attack, which is based on their attack value on the counter that's printed. We'll show you here in a minute, as well as a +1 modifier for every level of boulders they have in their stack. I think they can get up to 2 or 3 extra dice. So they could be rolling 5, 6, maybe even 7 dice. I think the most I've ever rolled was 8. So that happens very infrequently, but it can happen. Then what they're going to do is they're going to execute their special attack, which is printed on these counters. It is printed by a two-letter code. You're going to have to find these in the rule book, which I'll show you here in a little bit. You're going to find the different types, and you're going to read those. For example, on the Yellowstones, there is one called AV. It is the Avalanche. The Colossi goes berserk and lashes out in all directions. So you're going to follow a procedure where they're going to do a rolling thunder attack in any units that are around them. That can be very, very bad. There are also others where they're going to do a pile driver stomp, literally jump up in the air, come down, paralyze and stun based on a roll. Paralyzed and stun. Stun's not too bad. Paralyzed is terrible. You can't do anything. Medusa Stare from the Redstones. You've got Rolling Stone, Fault Tunneling, which is a very interesting one, mainly done by the Blackstone tribe, where you're going to roll 3 dice. You're going to take each of the numbers of those dice, and you're going to consult the map. And remember I said they're numbered from 111 to 666. So you're literally going to roll, okay, I rolled a 6, a 3, and a 6. So that's hex number 636. So I'm going to find that hex. Here we go. It's right here. And I'm going to move this Blackstone, which was all the way up on the northeast side of the map. They're now going to move down to hex 636, and they're going to be able to then get more into the action. That can be devastating if they were out of the way and now they came back in. So a lot of those special attacks are really, really devastating, and you can plan for those. Because you can see the top counter on any one of these Colossi stacks, you can kind of examine the units that are close to you and threatening you so that you understand, okay, he's going to do a range attack like a boulder sling. So as a Marine, you need to prepare during your action phase to be able to minimize that by either moving out of the way or by taking cover behind whatever, a building, a hill, a column, etc. You also, if you're ever up adjacent to them, you're going to want to move away, and you're going to want to move as far as you can away, because those rolling thunder attacks can be extremely devastating. So I like that element, that you're going to be able to plan for that. So then the Colossi are going to do their rolling thunder attack, like I said. They're going to do their special attacks, and then we're going to go to the end phase, which is going to remove some counters and markers and other things that may or may not happen. Then you're going to go back to the next turn and start it all over again. So an excellent AI. Not an overly complex AI for the game, but I'm okay with that. I think that's okay. I've played some other solitaire games, like, for instance, Comancheria by GMT Games and Joel Toppin. That AI was very complex and very well done. You could also plan for it, but it was a little bit harder. This one you can plan a little better, but there is still some randomness with these order of action cards. Really like that element of the game. Then you're going to play the game for 12 rounds. There are various scoring or victory conditions that you can score points by. Typically, for instance, the scenario that I have out here, scenario 2, I'll go ahead and read some of the victory elements that you're going to look for. And they're each different. They have some similarities, but they're each different. So for each level of eliminated Colossi unit, you're going to gain a point in this scenario. Each Marine-occupied Sacred Pillar Hex, we'll talk about what those are, you're going to gain 3 points. You can see in mine, I think I controlled 5 of those, so I ended up with 15 points from that. Wormhole Hex, I controlled that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That was worth 6. Stonehenge Hex, which was one of these gravel counter events, I was unable to control that hex, so I did not gain the VP, which actually would have come from the last number in the hex that Stonehenge was in. Kind of an interesting thing. So it could be worth 1 point or it could be worth 5 points. Eliminated Redstones or Tombstones. I didn't get close to eliminating either one of those tribes. We're also going to lose some points based on whether we've lost special weapons, heavy weapons, headquarter units, the Boring Pit, or other units that might be in the game. Scouts and medics are eliminated. You're going to lose a point, and then each eliminated regular Marine squad you're going to lose too. So it's a matter of mitigating the damage that you take so you don't lose more units. It's a matter of holding or taking certain objectives. In the first scenario, I think it was, rather than the sacred pillar hexes, it was building hexes and the mine entrance. So I had a potential to get like 10 or 12 points there, and I think I only got maybe 5 or 6. I could have done a lot more to do better in that scenario. But I like that it's a combination of holding objectives, killing the units of the enemies, and also minimizing the damage that you're going to reduce your number by to come up with a final score. And what it's going to tell you is a different victory level. So for instance, this scenario that I played, I ended up with a 34. I was 2 points away from going from a minor victory to a major victory. So, you know, I did okay. That was my first play. Would love to play those again so that I come up with a better score. But that's kind of the basics of the game. I want to do a close-up of the map, show you the different events, show you a little bit more about the cards and the counters, and then I'll come back with some final thoughts at the end. So here we go with a promised close-up look of the board itself. So once again, this is Attack of the 50-Foot Colossi. So this is the beta map zone beta. So this is the second map and the second scenario. The scenario is entitled the Colossi Moot, where they're going to get together and try to expel the Marines from Graviton Prime. So we've talked about a lot of the elements. This is a look at the completion of Scenario 2. I had a minor victory in this scenario. I will point out the elements that gained me victory points and also lost me victory points. Then we'll go to some of the elements like the phases, the turn track, the compass, which is a big part. They have a really nice terrain effects map you can see right there in the corner. That didn't come into play as often as I thought it would, only because the map is fairly basic. You can see also that this setup had 3 different zones through which the Marines could come. You had to pick, I believe, one of these 3 zones in the first round. Then 3 or 4 rounds later, the second team could come in one of the 2 remaining. And finally, the final Marines team reinforcements had to choose the final remaining unused landing area. But the Marines in this one were trying to do several things. Kill the Colossi. And here I wanted to show you, this is actually the number of Colossi levels that I eliminated. I eliminated 3 of the counters from the Greystone stack. And real quick, I'm going to give you a close-up of that. You'll notice the Greystone, sorry I clipped these, but this one looks like it's not that great. It can be reduced. And you'll notice on its full side here, this one's pretty powerful. It has a 5 attack value there on the left, and the defense value is 3. That means you have to roll 3 or higher to hit it. So if this is reduced, you're going to flip it over, and it now has only a 4 attack, and its defense is much, only 4, I said. Yeah, it reduced 1. And you can see its defense value dropped to a 2. So it's a lot easier to hit. You'll also notice the 2-letter code there, RL, rolling. Anyway, that refers to their special abilities. And I'll show you here. I'm going to move the camera back over this way. Here is the page that shows you the different special abilities. RL is Rolling Stone. And you can see there, it gives a very good description of what it is and then the procedure for executing it. So the map, the rule book is actually written very well. Here's a table showing the tribal special attacks. So you can see the Tombstones, they actually get to roll a die and choose one of any 6. Well, you roll the die and that assigns what you're doing. But you can see the others have different mixes. So for instance, the Brownstones have Pile Driver Stomp, as well as some of their counters have a Rolling Stone. So it's going to be either or, and I think that's kind of a neat thing. It gives a little bit of variety. So that's a look at those counters. But here you can see that I eliminated quite a few. I was very good with my attacks, especially my Orbital Strikes. Those can be very, very powerful. and I gain a point for each one of these. So you can see I've got 6, 9, 12. I've got about 15 points just in eliminated levels of those counters. The other element in this game that gave you victory points was control of these spiritual pillars. Here I controlled one. I actually controlled this one until the very end, and the Tombstones were able to move in, attack me. They force you to retreat. Anytime they do a rolling thunder attack, you're going to have to retreat, and therefore I lost control because the Colossi go last. But you can see I controlled several of those. These are all pillars up here. This Colossi was getting ready to come in and most likely attack me and make it so that I wouldn't control those. And then here I controlled the wormhole. So once again, I think my final score was 34, which was only 2 away from a major victory. Also, if you remember, I'm going to go ahead and move the camera over this way. Here were my eliminated Marines units. I actually only had 3 total eliminated Marine units. I did very well this time in protecting my units, getting my medic into contact with my units that were wounded or stunned so that they could help them heal. And I rolled very well and was able to flip those over quite often. You can see I lost 2 Marine squads. I think that would be a -4 points. And then the boring bit, which is a special attack weapon, I ended up losing, and I think that lost me maybe 3 or 4 points. So I actually scored enough points to have a major victory, but then lost points that caused me to be less. So now let's focus. I already talked about it. Let's just look real quickly at the tracks. So here's the game turn track. You'll notice it goes from 1 to 12. Both of the scenario are 12 turn scenarios. You're just going to move it down. Very nice. When it called for reinforcements, so in the scenario setup, it might say you're getting 2 Marine units in round 3. I would simply put the units like that, reminding myself upon round 3, I'm going to get those units. I would take them off and then put them in the appropriate staging areas. You'll also notice to the left, there is this phases and steps box. Fantastic. It really makes it such that you can almost play this game without ever really diving into the rules first. You can just basically follow it from step to step, reading the rules as you go along. You can see you always start with that event draw stage. Here's a look at some of those events. We won't look at all of them, but each of the scenarios has a certain amount. So you can see, pretty simple. You're going to blind draw those out of the cup. Then you actually have this handy dandy event chit chart. And this actually contains all the different events. It actually tells you as well how many of these are actually in the deck or in the draw cup. Not in the draw cup, but in the game itself. I think the only one that have, there we go. Medical supply drop has 2. Gallstones has a couple. Chain lightning is in there twice. Everything else is only in there once. So really handy dandy, great player aid. On the back side of that player aid are the different steps, and we'll go over those, but you can see the different steps for the Marines, including Marine recovery, scheduled reinforcements, actions, etc. There is a corresponding table or chart. So here you have the Marine recovery chart up here. So if this unit, let me just go through this right now. I'm just going to use this unit as an example. This unit over here, he is stunned. You can't quite see it. I'm gonna go ahead and turn. So this unit here is stunned, right? So he's going to, at the Marine recovery step, you're going to roll 1 die. You look at this chart, you're going to find stunned, and you're going to need to roll a 5 or a 6 in order to remove that marker. So here we go. I didn't do it, therefore that marker stays. Let's say I did roll a 5 or a 6. You're simply going to take that marker off, put it back in the supply, and that guy is no longer stunned. The cool thing about the other types of markers here, paralyze. So paralyze is really bad. If you haven't seen a paralyze, let me Let me go ahead and hold that up. It's really bad. You do not want to become paralyzed. And you're going to become paralyzed either through an event, a type of attack based on a roll, or by taking 3 hits. So what happens is when you take a hit, the player can choose to do a reduction of that unit, flip it over. They can then choose for a second hit to become stunned or place a stunned counter. For that third hit, you can then turn that stunned counter over and become a paralyzed counter. You can see paralyzed, you have no movement and no attack. You can literally do nothing. So once again, paralyzed, if I'm paralyzed, all I'm going to do, consult the table, paralyzed, I still have to roll a 5 or a 6. Oh, I rolled a 5. That's then going to be flipped. So I'm going to flip it from the paralyzed side to the stunned side. Each Marine unit gets a recovery attempt every round. One of the cool things is if there's a medic, I believe it's within 2 hexes of a non-paralyzed medic. So the medic can be reduced. It can also be stunned. So I would never paralyze any of my medics until I had no other choice. But if it's within 2 hexes, what's going to happen is I'm going to get an extra die to roll. I still have to roll a 5 or a 6, but I'm going to get twice as much opportunity. Hey, I got a 5. If I only had 1, I would have rolled a 3 and would not have been able to do that. So that's an example of how that works. Combat's pretty simple. Let's go ahead and look at combat. I'm going to go ahead and move in over here a little bit. And we'll try to make sure you can see that. So I'm going to use this example of this heavy weapons unit who is attacking this greystone here. Once again, range doesn't matter. He could be over here or here as long as I have line of sight and I can target that without looking through a pillar or a gravel hex or a hill hex, one of these, then I can shoot. So what you're going to do is you're going to consult the heavy weapons team. It says they have 5 dice. So I'm going to pick up 5 dice. They're going to roll, and they're attempting to roll 4s, 5s, or 6s. I have no other modifiers. I haven't moved this round. I don't have any special conditions, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and roll. All right, so I have to roll 5s or 6s. Luckily, I rolled 3 5s and 6s. So that's actually going to flip this counter. If I only rolled, let's say I only rolled 2 hits on that healthy guy, I'm then going to put what's called a chipped marker on him. That chipped marker, you will notice, a little bit hard to see, it gives a -1 defensive number value to that unit. As long as I have not done at least 3 wounds in 1 attack to that greystone counter, and as long as I continue attacking that unit with other units around, that chipped marker is going to continue. So at this time, let's just use this guy as an example, because let's say he had another attack. Let's take off the stun thing just so I can show you. So he's going to roll 4 dice, and he's going to hit now on 3s, 4s, 5s, or 6s. He has no other modifiers. So unfortunately, I did not roll above 3 hits, so nothing's going to happen. Another thing that you got to remember, if there's other units in between this unit and its target, you're going to roll 1 less dice. So in this instance, the Marine squad would only roll 3 dice and still didn't get 3 hits, which is not great. Didn't roll well there. So that's a basis of, or a look at combat. Another one that I want to show you is Orbital Strike, because this one was my favorite. Where is one of my HQs? All right. So I'm going to show you what an Orbital Strike does. So with an Orbital Strike, you have to have a non-stunned and non-paralyzed HQ unit within line of sight of a unit, like a Colossi, or they must be within 4 hexes of a unit that has line of sight. So let's move this red rock here, which tells me that blocks line of sight. This guy could not call in an Orbital Strike on this Yellowstone, but He can call in an orbital, can call in an orbital strike. I'm going to move this red rock here, just as an example. He does have a line of sight to a unit that has line of sight, so he could basically use him as a relay to call in that orbital strike. Then what you're going to do, the first thing you're going to do as a condition of an orbital strike, is you're going to refer to the last number in a numbered hex. The numbered hex that is your target. So this hex is 543. We're going to look at the final number, or the 3, and that's going to tell me we're going to roll 3 dice. And I am looking for 4s, 5s, and 6s. So we're going to go ahead and roll. Boom. Exactly what I wanted to happen. So, on an orbital strike, for each number 6 rolled, you're going to turn that one hit into a second. So, this will count for 2. This one will count for 2 as well. That's 4 hits on this Yellowstone. That is enough to reduce it, to flip it over. But you might be saying, well, I still have 1 hit. It only took 3 hits to reduce that thing. You don't carry hits over. So I remember one time I was playing and I think I rolled, I want to say 4 6s, 3 6s and a couple of 5s. So I would have literally had 8 hits, but 3 hits is all you need to flip over a unit. So that's an example of an orbital strike. Very, very powerful. Some of these units have special weapons. For instance, the special ops unit has what's called, I believe, let me look at it real quick, a chiseler. So as long as he is within 4 hexes of a target, 1, 2, 3, 4, he can attack. He's going to consult this table right here, the Chiseler Combat Results Table. So you're going to roll a die, roll 1 die. It only is modified by -1 if he's disrupted, he's moving and shooting, stunned, or he entered this turn in a landing attempt. So with this, he's simply going to roll. He's going to need 3 or higher to hit. I'm sorry, no, he doesn't need a 3 or higher to hit. You're going to consult the table. So the table, he rolled a 5. The table's going to say shattered. The top counter is flipped over or removed from the game if already flipped. So that was already flipped. He's now going to completely remove that counter. Victory, he won. So that's a special unit. It's a special ops unit. You can see they have that cool little skull symbol there in the bottom. They also have a high defensive value. Their movement value is in the upper right. They have a 4, but they also have a jump pack. Jump packs are really nifty. Jump packs, you can identify any hex on the map that you want to go to, but you have to roll dice to try to land. And it's a little trickier than it might sound. So let's go ahead and show you. So you're just simply going to roll 1 die. So let's say this jump pack unit wants to somehow jump over here because he wants to get in target for this graystone. He's going to roll a die. Boop. I rolled a 1. Not good, by the way. So I'm going to then consult. And this is the hallmark of a great solitaire game. Lots of tables. I'm going to consult the jump pack move table. There is a malfunction. Then what I have to do is roll 3 dice consecutively. So there I rolled a 3, a 5, and a 5. So that's going to refer, you remember I was trying to get into this hex. Now I have to put my guy in hex number 355, which is way up here. So that's the way that works. That also is a similar procedure when the troops are landing on the map itself. You have to roll a certain number of dice based on the last number of the hex, and then you have to overcome a certain number, or you're going to be scattered, or you're going to be damaged or reduced. There's a lot of really cool elements like that in this game. So I showed you an example of combat. I showed you an example of jump pack move. I showed you an example of an orbital strike, my favorite part of the game, by the way. Also showed you one of the special weapons. There are other units that the Marines have access to. A bomber. You'll notice that the bomber has a huge movement of 12. They are going to drop a bomb, and guess what? That bomb refers to a table, and anything above a 4 is going to do damage. So I think a 4 to 5 removes one of the, or flips a counter or removes a flipped counter. A number 6 is going to remove an entire counter, whether it's flipped or not. So 6s are good. I have had 6s before, and that makes a great thing. I did want to show you a close-up of a couple of these Colossi order of action cards. So once again, you're going to pull these at the beginning of the Colossi action phase, and you're then going to activate those units in that order. So you'll notice these are 2 different cards. They start with the Tombstones both on top, but they differ in the next one. The black stones activate on the left, the white stones on the right, and then it goes down from there. You will notice that red stones are both, red stone's on the left, but not on the right. White stone is on the right, but not on the left. Gray stone is on the right, but not on the left. So you can see that you're not always going to activate every tribe that's on the board every turn. As I said earlier, that kind of gives you an opportunity to breathe, to catch your breath. So that's a look at the board. We talked about some of the functions. I didn't really show you the rest of the phases, but I think we talked about that earlier. Once again, great presentation. I think this game is fun to play, and I think there's a lot of great elements to it. I would hope that you give it a chance and try to check it out. So we'll now come back with some final thoughts. So we got a good look at the map and the counters, some of the mechanics that I talked about when we were looking at that map. I think my final thoughts on this game is, once again, I enjoy solitaire gaming, but I'm not necessarily a solitaire gamer. And there is a difference. Alexander, my partner in the blog, he is a solitaire gamer. He loves it. I enjoy a little more interaction. I enjoy a little bit of friendly banter. I also enjoy interpreting rules and having that rules discussion. That's one of the things I don't enjoy about solitaire gaming, and I think this game had a little bit of that. While I thought the rules were very well written and fairly clear, there were enough exceptions, and sometimes the rules weren't necessarily in the best places when I'm flipping through the rule book trying to figure things out. So I might miss things, but I enjoy and I miss when I do solitaire gaming that I don't have that companion to discuss those things with. So that's one thing that I think with this game, rules were generally very good, but I think they could have done a job of giving a couple more clarifications and examples. They actually did a really good job. If you look at the rule book, there are fantastic examples of play, from attacking to moving, to holding objectives and doing different things. Excellent job of those types of things. This game is well produced. Counters are great looking. The map's nice. It's functional. It's not going to blow you away. You're not going to frame this and put it on the wall. But for a polybag game that I believe costs $25, I don't know that you're going to do much better than this. The design is very tight. I think the design is very good. The AI has a lot of complexity built into it with variability, but overall the system is very simple, very straightforward. You move. If you're adjacent with the monsters, you attack. Then you perform their special abilities. That's it. You don't do a whole lot else. Some of the variability comes from the differing abilities that each tribe has. Sometimes a tribe within a certain stack will have a different special ability and a different attack and defense value. And that's always good, once again, because it gives some variety. The event chits are great. The gravel chits are great. And really, the story and the theme is very cool. Let's be honest, it's something that you're going to have fun playing. And I think that's what's important. This is a fun hex encounter solitaire war game that you can have fun with. Frankly, I think it plays fairly quickly. The first game I played, and I think it advertises 120 to 140 minutes, give or take. And I'm sorry, I should know that better with as much as I have played it. Yeah, 120 to 150 minutes, so 2 to 2.5 hours. My first game took me about 3 hours. Once again, didn't know what I was doing. The second game, though, I played it in about 90 minutes. And I thought the second scenario is much more complex than the first. So I think 90 minutes is about what you're going to experience with this game, and I think that's fantastic. You can also play this game just like many other solitaire games and walk away from it and come back and pick it back up. It's not like you're going to lose. It's fairly simple and understandable. You're not going to you're not going to lose track of what was going on. All you got to do is look at where you were, and you can kind of figure it out. So once again, I recommend this game. I think it's a solid solitaire game. Great job by Herman Luttman. Very high quality production by Tiny Battle Publishing. And I think that's one thing I kind of want to end my review on. Up until about a year and a half ago, I don't know that I knew much about Tiny Battle Publishing. We've been playing serious war games for the last 5 to 10 years and didn't really know much about Tiny Battle Publishing. I'm sorry, Tiny Battle Publishing, but I can tell you, I'm sure glad that I become acquainted with Tiny Battle Publishing. They've done an excellent job with these, once again, folio games. A lot of times they're very deceptive. Just because this is a folio game that comes in a plastic bag doesn't mean there's not a lot of complexity, good systems, good design, and a lot of fun to be had. We've played a lot of these. Winter Thunder, we loved it. It's a Battle of the Bulge game, World War II, designed by Brian Train. We've also played Operation Icarus, which is a what-if style war game involving a German invasion of Iceland and the British fighting them off. That was probably the least favorite of our 3 or 4 that we've played, but still had a lot of great mechanics and a lot of great design elements. We've got a couple others, Lion of Malaya, that I would like to play, Red Horde 1920. So give TBP a chance. Check them out. They've got a lot of different types of war games. Like I said, sci-fi theme. They've got World War II, World War I, more modern warfare. Lots of different examples and different types of combat that you can get into. So with that, I'm Grant for theplayersaid.com. If you enjoyed our video, go ahead and like it. If you enjoy our channel, please subscribe. We're trying to be a high-value choice for you out there who want to get a review and a feel for games before you go ahead and commit to buy them. And I like what we do. It's fun and enjoyable, and I'm glad that we're able to share this time with you. So let me know what you thought of the video in the comments, and we'll check you later.